Hey everyone, I'm Maria and this is my channel Planners in Practice. Welcome to my November bullet journal setup. So the theme for this month is Autumn in London. I know that we are used to seeing autumn as being used as a theme for October and some cases even September, but I've seen that here in London it's actually November where all those amazing leaf colors come in. So I've decided that November is actually my autumn month. Just to warn you, this is a fairly long video, so there will be timestamps in the description box so that you can see what are the types of spreads that I'm creating. So let's begin. So first of all, I have outlined the all of the spreads with pencil beforehand, as you can see or barely see. And also, sorry for the camera flicking rather like this from time to time, but this will get sorted a bit later in the video. So this first spread is the typical monthly calendar that we have, and we have the name of the month. And also, since our theme is autumn in London, I wanted to use something that is very typical for the place, something that I associate with it. And one of the first things that comes to mind is the tube here. So that's the circular sign over there. You'll see a bit later. And then I just decided to add some autumn leaves that the city is full of, and it's like super beautiful. And we also have a girl with something like a jacket with a hood and a hat and a scarf, because it gets quite windy this time of year. Then on the other page, there is a quote that I always like to add that to my monthly setup. And actually, I'm a huge fan of quotes, inspirational quotes overall. I even have this box full of them, like different thoughts, and I'm usually taking one out every morning while I'm drinking my morning tea or coffee or whatever it is that day. And yeah, it really helps me set the tone for the day, if that makes sense. So now going back to the first spread and creating those super typical for London again brick walls that you can see almost everywhere, and adding more details to that sign of the tube that I told you about. And the station I picked out was London Bridge. I mean, what could be more iconic than that? Then going back to the quote and adding some more details to it. And here the font I'm using is actually my own handwriting. I'm a huge fan of scribbles and swirls and that kind of stuff. So that's my very typical handwriting. And I really love this quote. It's life is like a cup of tea. It is all in how you make it. And I think that for this time of year specifically, and everything that's happening in the world, it's really great to remind ourselves of that. So here I'm moving on to the coloring part, and I'm using watercolors for this. And also the brush that I'm using for this is Silver Black Velvet number 4. I will list that in the description box so that you can see it. And it's basically a pretty good brush that allows you to have this bigger stroke if needed, but also can be super intricate in some places, like you will see later with the London Bridge sign. And here I'm using wet on wet technique and adding more colors to mimic those amazing autumn colors. And also another thing to add here is that the book that I'm using is 160 GSM, so it's pretty thick paper and can take watercolor pretty well. Still, I'm conscious about adding too much water, so it's always something to keep in mind. And here is that bit that I told you about, where the brush really comes into play and can really allow you to do those little details. I was all the time just expecting to mess this up, but somehow it turned out okay. And yeah, I think it's fairly readable. Another thing to mention here is that I would always recommend using 2 jars or cups or whatever you're using for water. So that one is that you primarily use, and then the other one is just to dip your brush into it and make sure that it's super clean when you're taking on new paint. Also on the paint side of things, so the watercolors that I'm using are Sennelier. They're a French brand that is famous for their glazing specifically, so basically layering lots of watercolor, and they're also pretty opaque, so there can be some pretty cool effects that you can do with them. Of course, there's a lot to be learned in order to be able to do that. And to be completely honest with you, I'm definitely still a beginner with this. But I really love and enjoy using watercolors, and specifically these. I love all of their colors. I recently got the full range, so it's really amazing. It's 98 colors, and I love every single one. It's so nice. I can show you the swatches that I have from all of them, and yeah, it's just super nice collection. Another thing to mention is the pen that I'm using, and it's a pigment liner that is 0.4, and I find that to be thick enough for well, basically using pretty much using it for all of my scribbles and drawings. Something that is super important to keep in mind is that you need to use a water resistant one. So that's of course if you're using watercolor, but in my case that's a must. And I found that this one works pretty well, as well as the microns that are very popular. Also, so I'm basically alternating between one and the other, but this one is the one that was closer to me, and I grabbed for this video. So these spreads are taking me pretty long time to complete, but keep in mind that I was just playing around and messing with the colors and trying to see what I can do with them, because as I said, I'm still learning with this and I really enjoy the process. So it depends completely, it's up to you on how much time you want to actually spend on this. And then we have a pot of tea and a cup that supposedly has tea that looks disturbingly much like a coffee, but you'll have to forgive me about that. Also, there are some spills that happen every now and then, but just using a paper towel or going back with the brush and trying to remove some of the paint. And even if there's something left, as in my case over here, that's still fine. There are always some little mistakes that happen when we're creating these setups. So it's about just knowing that this is part of the process and not obsessing too much about it. So here, moving on to the next couple of spreads. The first one is a monthly calendar for November, and it has the same theme, so lots of autumn leaves. And then here I decided to create the calendar on one page only, but to be honest, so far I've always used 2 pages, and I think that this one might turn out to be a bit too small, but decided to give it a go because I like experimenting and yeah, trying new stuff. As you noticed, I've added 1 extra box to this because I don't know, I miscounted something, but as I said, part of the process. Then below that, again, some things that I'm associating right away when I hear about London, and it's the telephone booths, the red ones that are everywhere around the city, as well as their super specific cabs, or at least something similar to them, as you'll see. And also there's a street light over there that I really enjoy, and there are a ton of them throughout the city, and I don't know, there's just something about street lights that I find well, attractive, I guess, and they're just creating a great atmosphere, I think. So the next spread is about monthly goals, and here I've started with a very important category for me, and that's the top 3 most important goals for the month, because I think that we can be creating all kinds of trackers but unless we have that focus and attention towards what's the most important, then we can just keep ourselves busy doing some stuff that are not actually adding value to our longer term goals, if that makes sense. So that's why we have that section on the top there. Then the bottom part of the page is the so-called urgent important matrix, and this is a great tool for listing out all of your tasks and then trying to categorize them and basically give them a priority. So depending on how urgent or important a task is. And it's a tool that I really love and really helps with keeping that focus. So urgent and important are obviously the things that need to happen almost right away. Then urgent but not important can be some minor tasks, but that still cannot be postponed. Then the not urgent and important quadrant is, I would say, probably the most important one, because these are things that we're not really pressed to do, but they're usually the ones that are contributing the most towards our longer term goals. So what I'm doing is always making sure that during my month I have specific time dedicated to work on these, because they tend to be pushed back very easily from all of the stuff from the other quadrants, and they're the ones that are actually making a great positive difference, I think. So it's important to keep an eye on those. Usually when I create my spread, I will start listing all of my tasks, and as I go, I will be distributing them in each quadrant. The not urgent, not important one, there are things that go over there as well, but basically those are things that we cannot do at all usually. But since they usually are also some more easy to do tasks, we can get occupied with them. So it's good to keep that in mind as well, and trying to minimize the efforts that go in there. Also, there's a fox over there in that same quadrant, because there are some cities that have lots of cats or lots of other animals, and the ones that I've seen the most here are actually foxes. And because there are a lot of green spaces, there are lots of them that just live in the various neighborhoods, and every now and then you can see one coming out of a small park or green space. And yeah, I was very shocked by this at the beginning when I moved here, but now I'm pretty used to it, and foxes are now something that I associate with London as well. Above that, there is also a map or something similar to the London Tube, and I think I kind of messed it up, but it gives you a general idea, and yeah, I think you can still recognize what that is, hopefully, especially after it's colored. So right now I'm adding more light to the street lamp, and then since it looked a bit dull, I decided to add some more autumn leaves and color on the ground. That will hopefully make it look a bit more alive and colorful. Again, here I'm going back to all of the autumn leaves, because I wanted to test that glazing technique and try to layer more watercolors to get basically better intensity of the colors, and yeah, I was playing around and happy with how it turned out. Something that I can mention around the watercolors is that they actually came in these 10 milliliter tubes, and then I had to buy half pans and fill them with each color. And basically I've used some other tins that I had available. Moving on to the next spreads. So first one is Habit Tracker, and it's taking forever to outline. And as you'll see, I've added one extra right there, but again, it is what it is. Something that I think I might try and probably will try next month is actually using a ruler, because yeah, it will probably look better and neater, I guess, because right now they're okay, but yeah, they could be better overall. Then adding again some autumn leaves, of course. And these are all the things that I'm trying to track, and as you can see, there are quite a few different things. And first row is all about health, both physical and mental, let's call it. After that, some stuff that I take care of in the house, and then I have my learning tracker and all the things that I'm trying to get better at, like piano and French and typing, tracking my reading also. Then moving on to the next page, it's best of the day spread. So basically the idea here is that regardless of how your day was, you're always looking for something positive to write down here. So what was the best thing that happened that day? Could be something super simple and small at first glance, but I find it really helpful to be able to focus on the positive stuff, regardless of what's happening in my life. And also this becomes kind of like a diary, because if you've met with someone or did something you're proud of that day, usually that goes here. So every month you have something to look back on and see basically what you did that month, and what are some things that you made progress on, what are things that you're happy with. And also I saw this super cute and popular picture of a girl just chilling with a book and some coffee and these warm socks on Pinterest. So that's what we have there in the right down corner. Then going in with the watercolor, exactly as on every other spread. I'm filling out the leaves, and after they're dry, then coming back again and adding more color to it. I haven't filled the grid line inside of each box for each of the individual habit trackers, because I thought I would be doing this as I go. To be honest, it was just too much and too many lines, and I didn't want to deal with that right now. Plus, I like the way it looked like this. And I decided that as I go, I will be creating all of the little boxes inside. Also, I found this method of having one tracker per habit much more useful than, for example, creating a big table with lots of rows, because then even when some rows are progressing and I'm doing just some of the things, I still feel that there's some pretty good progress, where actually, for example, I could have skipped piano for half a month or something like that. So yeah, having an individual one works definitely much better for me. Looking at the next spread then, I've called this Scribbles and Notes. Basically, this is a page that I'm leaving blank and I'm using for all kinds of ideas and things that I want to try next month, or anything really that comes to mind and that I want to keep track of. So yeah, this is basically the equivalent of a brain dump page, but I just like the sound of Scribbles and Notes better, I guess. And then we have the umbrella with some leaves again and some wind blowing, because yeah, it's November, it's London, it's super beautiful and colorful, but there is the wind. So the next spread is a weekly setup that I think I should have used actually 2 pages for, but we'll see how that would work. Basically, I have some space for each day, and at the bottom part of the page there is the weekly top 3, similarly to what I have for the monthly spread. I think it's really crucial to keep an eye again on those tasks or things that are top of our list and have the highest priority, so that we can avoid doing just the busy work instead of the important one. Then adding some drawings to it, and since this is the beginning of October, I am still kind of in a Halloweeny mood, so there's the pumpkin there. Then at the bottom of the page there are 3 sections that I really like, and this is basically my weekly review process. So some questions that I'm asking myself are what could have been better, and these are things that I can improve on in the future. Then I'm keeping track of wins of the week, so what are the things that I'm really happy for, and this gives me really a sense of accomplishment, and I know that I'm progressing on the things that really matter to me, and that's really important for me to keep track of. It keeps me focused, it helps me be motivated and just keep going. Then last one is next week, and basically these are things that I want to do next week. It could be something that is left over from this one, could be something that I just want to focus on. Anything that I don't want to forget about, I will write over there, or anything that I want to focus on, basically. It's worth noting that at the top of the page I have the week number as well, because this gives me a better sense of how far along into the year it is, and I know how much time I have for completing my yearly goals, which is something else that I have. And yeah, it's just something that works pretty well for me. I think that when I was creating this spread, I was kind of hungry or wanted something sweet, hence all the donuts and pies and coffees and stuff. Also, later I realized that for the first column, the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, there is barely any space left for actually writing down the tasks. So yeah, I think that definitely I will use a couple of pages for the next weekly spread. So here I'm going back and just using a Jelly Roll Pen 08, a white one, to add some details and also underlying all of the titles of all of the spreads, and adding some final touches basically to the setup. Also, these three at the bottom looked pretty faint, so I went over them again. So this is the final flip through, and that's how all of the spreads turned out. I'm happy with this month's setup, and yeah, it took some time, but it was really fun creating this theme. Okay, this was it. I hope you enjoyed it and that you got some ideas, whether it's from the drawings, from the type of spreads, or the productivity tips I was talking about. Have a lovely day and see you on Monday.